Hello and welcome to the Rusted Brush. Today I'm going to be showing you my Hochland Bandit Warband for Mordheim. I'll walk you through how I built them, how I painted them, and a bit of narrative and backstory behind the group. So let's start with the Warband itself from the rules perspective. You can find these guys on the Mordheim website under 1B rated warbands. They're a really interesting option, with a wide variety of heroes and henchmen that give you a lot of flexibility. For this project I'm running them in a small campaign with a few friends, so I'm not building anything ultra competitive, just something solid that performs well and still fun to play. As I go through the list, I'll also show you what models I'm using and what they're made from. The first thing I did was max out heroes, which was something you generally want to do in Mordheim. More heroes means more exploration dice, and that's huge for your campaign progression. Starting with the leader, the Bandit Prince. I've equipped him with a sword and shield. It's simple but effective. A save and a parry goes a long way in keeping him alive. In terms of conversion, the base model was the Nurgle Chaos Lord. I wanted him to be more on the portly side. I green stuffed most of the nasty wounds and blisters on him and smoothed the armor to be less Nurgle-like. I made a simple belly out of green stuff as well that turned out great. The arms, helmet, and pauldrons are all from the Cities of Sigmar command set, and I think these fit the scale perfectly with the body. The wine flask and the chicken came from some ogre bits I had lying around, and I think this really solidified why this guy's so big. The shield is a Bretonnian men-at-arms shield. I wanted something big for his size, but also for painting some freehand on the shield. I added some fake fur to his back, and then lastly I gave him the old plastic White King sword, which I felt helped show that he's the boss of the group. Next is the Duelist. The Duelist is kitted with a rapier, main gauche, and a dueling pistol. This guy is honestly pretty scary. He's got excellent defensive potential with parry options, and access to a wide variety of weapons. The main downside is that he can't take armor, so you do have to be a bit careful with him. The Duelist is a lot more simple, with most of the model being made from a Night's Watch veteran from A Song of Ice and Fire. I added a sword from Wargames Atlantic Conquistador kit, a pistol from the Empire Pistoliers, and then I green stuffed a hood. The base model really spoke to me, and I thought it fit the rugged duelist already off the bat. Next up is the Huckster, who's a very unique hero. He's not great in combat and has a pretty limited equipment list, so I started him with a sling and dagger, with the plan to give him a spear later on. He's best kept in the backline supporting your warband. He has the ability that forces enemies to take a leadership test if they want to charge models within 12 inches of him, which can be incredibly disruptive. Between games, he can also run cons on the locals to generate extra gold, which is just perfect from both a gameplay and narrative perspective. For the model, his body and legs are from the Empire Militia kit, the head from the Empire Archer kit, the left hand from the Old State Troop kit, the other hand and spear is from Wargames Atlantic Conquistador Cavalry, with a flag from the Death Rattle Skeleton with some green stuff added to fill the holes in, and the cloak is from the Fireforged Teutonic Knight set. Then we have the footpads, your basic thugs, but they're a bit better at hiding. I've got one equipped with a hammer, shield, and throwing axes, and the other with an axe and shield. Since I know I'll be facing a lot of heavily armored opponents, the axe is going to help with that. The first footpad's body is from the Frostgrave Cultist set, the arms and shield are from the Fireforged Teutonic Knights, the head is from the Perry Miniatures Men-at-Arms kit, the throwing axes are some random Warhammer axes I just had lying around, and the backpack I had lying around in my bits bin, and I'm not exactly sure of its origin. The other footpad uses the Empire Militia body, legs, axe, and arm. The hood is from the Wood Elf Eternal Guard kit, the other arm is from the current Empire State Troop kit, and the shield is from the Fireforged Teutonic Knights. Moving on to henchmen, the poachers are starting off with longbows, giving me some solid range presence early on. I also built a bandit with a crossbow for later, in case one of them rolls a skill to use it. The poachers use bits from the Frostgrave Cultists, Empire Archers, Flagellants, a dog from the Bretonnian Men-at-Arms, and a crow from the Empire General kit. The crossbowman uses bits from the Frostgrave Cultist, Empire State Troops, and the crossbow from the Wargames Atlantic Conquistador kit. I've got two models that can be either run as Blackhearts or Thugs. Most likely I'm going to be using them as Thugs for the extra strength, but having the option to ignore fear with Blackhearts could be useful. One is equipped with the great weapon, and the other has a flail, which I'm counting as a hammer, and he also has a shield. The one with the great weapon was made with a torso and arms from the Empire Militia, the great sword's leg, a sword and arm from the Questing Knights, and a head from a Night Haunt Ghost. I'm not exactly sure which one. The other one uses bodies, legs, and arms from the Empire Militia kit, the head from a Frostgrave Cultist, the flail is from the Song of Ice and Fire Karstark Loyalists, a Graveguard Pauldron, and a Bretonnian Knight Shield, and a men-at-arms pouch. And finally, we've got another thug and a looter. The looter is cheap with just a dagger. You're really taking him for the ability to loot the dead, not to fight. The thug is equipped with a sword and shield for a straightforward parry and save. The looter's body and head are from the Empire Archers, the arm and dagger are from the Frostgrave Cultist, and the cloak is from the Teutonic Knight set. The thug's body is from the Frostgrave Cultist, hood from the Wood Elf Eternal Guard, sword arm from the Empire Archer, shield is unknown origin to me, and the pauldron from the Graveguard kit. Now let's move on to painting. For this section, I'm going to keep things a bit more abridged than I normally do. The overall palette is built around different shades of brown, mostly using speed paints and the AK Interactive 3rd Gen range. The idea here is that the bandits either don't want to stand out or simply can't afford to, so I wanted a bit more muted and grounded look. That said, I did add a bit of color here and there on the sleeves and shield using greens, yellows, and reds just to break things up slightly and give some visual interest across the warband. For the metals, I'm using AK Natural Steel and Vallejo Old Gold to give a bit of contrast between the different equipment. Once the base colors were down, I then applied an enamel wash using Villainy ink, specifically Groon's Grime and Ichor of the Dam, to really dirty the models down and tie everything together. After that, I went back in, highlighted most of the colors using a brighter version of the base tone, usually by mixing in something like Ushabti Bone to keep everything consistent and desaturated. For the skin, I started with Warrior Skin Speed Paint, then built up highlights with Cadian Flesh Tone and Kislev Flesh. On some of the models, I also added an enamel wash of Carrion Crimson. I added some rust effects using AK Rust Streaks, and then finished off everything with a bit of Blood for the Blood God for some extra character. For the bases, I used AK Muddy Ground. While it was still drying, I pressed in some Kraut Scenics Runes of Perdition, and then added a few leaves to finish everything off. Now that the models are finished, I'll do a little bit of a showcase and talk about the lore for each model. Let's start with the leader, Edmund the Angler Knight. The son of a Hochland noble, Edmund ran away from home to become a man-at-arms. But he never took well to orders, and before long he turned to banditry, where size, confidence, and inherited wealth left him in command of others. He even created his own heraldry and commissioned a custom helmet after a fellow bandit joked that he looked like an anglerfish. The name stuck, and so did the image. Next is Pigskewer, a sword for hire who once served alongside Edmund in a mercenary warband. The two of them eventually split off to become outlaws, preferring to work amongst themselves rather than under anyone else. Originally from Talea, Pigskewer fights with a very different style compared to the Empire. More aggressive, more flamboyant. He acts as both a friend and a mentor to Edmund, grounding some of his more reckless tendencies. Then we have Peter the Hawk. He didn't join for his skill in combat, but for his cunning and silver tongue. He earned his name for the way he watches a deal, or a victim, always looking for a weakness. Whether it's extortion, deception, or outright cons, Peter has a way of convincing people he's useful, or at least not worth killing. He carries a white flag, often as a false signal of surrender, buying just enough time for one of his allies to strike from behind. Sonya the Arborist is next, a brutal woman from Hochland. She earned her name after chopping off her drunk husband's legs with a splitting axe. She's as tough as they come, and fiercely proud of her Hochland roots, often boasting of her resilience, something she's proven time and time again in battle. And finally, Mother Goose. While Edmund may lead the warband in field, she runs the camp. An older woman from Hochland, she abandoned her old life in search of something more adventurous. She's warm, caring, and almost maternal toward the warband, but cold and fiercely defensive when it comes to outsider. If you're not one of hers, you're not to be trusted. As for the henchmen, I haven't given them names or detailed backstories just yet. I like to let this happen naturally over a course of campaign, once they've actually proven themselves on the tabletop. So for now, here are some shots showcasing the different henchmen of the warband. First up, we have the Poachers. These were very simple builds. The Empire Archer kit really does all the work for you. It's rugged, full of character, and fits the bandit aesthetic perfectly with very little effort. Next are the two Blackhearts or Thugs, and these are probably my favorite conversions in the warband. I'm really proud of how these turned out. They both genuinely look intimidating, and the small details like the painting on the metal mask add a lot of personality. That idea was actually inspired by the execution mask from the Tower of London, which I think gives them a really unsettling presence. Then we've got the two additional Thugs and the Looter. These ones were a bit more straightforward in terms of building them, but still full of character. The Thugs have a rough, dangerous look that you'd expect, while the Looter is intentionally much simpler. He's not meant to look that cool or imposing. He's supposed to look like he's a bit of a scumbag, someone who hangs back and picks over the dead rather than getting stuck in a fight. And that's the warband done. My inspiration for this warband really comes from the love of organized crime films and series. The three biggest influences for this project were first and probably my favorite, The Sopranos. A lot of the character dynamics come from here, especially that mix of ego, loyalty, and underlying tension. Everyone has their role, everyone thinks they deserve more, and they're also kind of acting like a dysfunctional family in some ways. I tried to bring that into the warband, where it feels less like a disciplined unit, more like a group of personalities being held together.
This ain't negotiation time. This is Scarface, final scene, f***ing bazookas under each arm. Say hello to my little friend.
Always with the scenarios.
Then there's Snatch by Guy Ritchie. This is where a lot of the tones come from, the fast-paced, slightly chaotic energy, and those really distinct, memorable characters. Everyone looks and feels different. That's something I really wanted the models as well. Each member of the warband has their own identity, even if they're just a lowly thug.
They will go through a body that weighs 200 pounds in about 8 minutes. That means that a single pig can consume 2 pounds of uncooked flesh every minute. Hence the expression, as greedy as a pig.
And finally, a slightly more obscure one, Dead Man's Bluff. This one leans much more into the darker, almost absurd side of crime. The violence is messy, the characters are a bit unhinged, and there's this underlying grim humor to it, which honestly fits Mordheim perfectly. It helped push the Warband away from being too grounded, and more into that exaggerated, slightly twisted direction. I think what ties all of these models together is that none of them are really honorable. They're just opportunists, schemers, and survivors, and that's exactly what I wanted this Warband to feel like. Not soldiers, not knights, just a group of dangerous people trying to carve out their own piece of the ruins. This was a really fun project to work on, not just because of the models, but because of the characters behind them. I'm especially looking forward to seeing how they develop over the course of the campaign, who rises through the ranks, who gets taken out early, and which of the henchmen actually earns a name for themselves. If you enjoyed the video, let me know what you think of the Warband and which model or character was your favorite. And if you've run into Hochland Bandits before, I'd be interested to hear how they performed for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.